Hello, I'm Paul Spaventa, Interim Superintendent of Pemberton Township Schools. On today's edition of Outlook, I'll be giving you an update of where we are in preparing for the reopening of schools in September. I do want to express to you that as a superintendent and as a parent and as a grandparent, no matter where I go, people are very upset about this, very stressed, and I understand that. We're working very hard to deal with all of your issues and to have whatever answers we can for you. Some of the answers are not available to us from the CDC, from the county superintendent, and for that matter, the State Board of Education. It is early in July. We're opening in September. We have meeting after meeting, and we're trying to get those answers for you, but we do have to have a plan in place under direct orders of the governor. While our final plan will be presented at the July 29th special board meeting, I want to share with you the key points of our reentry plan and the background information that has gone into the planning process. Right now, we're going to see a slideshow of the plans so far and the elements that we considered in making our plans for September. Schools must reopen in person for the 2021 school year. If there's a shift in the public health data, things may change. The governor's orders state that school districts must reopen for modified in-person instruction and operations. Given the required 6-foot distancing, many districts will need to operate in a hybrid model because of related capacity. As you can see in the picture there, that is a picture of desks that are 6 foot apart. Hybrid environments may be necessary and include in-person as well as remote learning. The in-person will be done every other day, and instruction will still take place remotely on the days that students do not attend school. There's also a remote-only choice that you have. You can keep your child home, as we had done in the spring. There's 4 key areas that I want to explain that we had to consider. We don't have all of the answers or all of the plans in place yet, but I do want to tell you all of the areas that were of concern and that we were mandated to address. The first 4 were critical areas of operation, leadership and planning, funding, and continuity of learning. We're going to talk about each of those areas quickly. The first critical area of operation was a hybrid model, which is a combination of in-school learning and at-home learning. And those students will be divided into 2 teams. Students that come to school and also remotely will be divided into 2 distinct teams and come to school every other day. While there's a few rules that we will follow for general health and safety guidelines, stay at home if you're sick, hand hygiene, face masks, and signs and messages around the school. The hand hygiene will be delivered at each classroom and in the hallways. Temperatures will be taken as students enter and exit the building, and there will be signs and messages around posted to direct students and staff and visitors as to what the processes will be. Classrooms, of course, you saw the picture, 6 feet apart. Bus transportation, 1 student per row. So that limits the amount of students that we can have on the buses, and so it's critical that we know your plans, whether you're going to send your child to a hybrid home and school environment or whether you're going to opt to have your child learn remotely throughout the first marking period. Student flow, entry and exit, there'll be signs, there'll be arrows, one-way routes as in many department stores, as well as separate entrance and exit. We are social distancing and requiring masks. Screening, there'll be, as I said, temperature checks and symptomatic procedures. School nurses will work in conjunction with the Burlington County Health Association Health Department, and they will call and work with the waiting room for anyone who exhibits any signs of illness. The meals will be determined by numbers. If there's enough space in the cafeteria to have social distancing, students will eat in the cafeteria. If not, they'll be required to eat in their classroom. Recess, physical education, extracurricular activities, and use of facilities. We'll have some regulations with regard to social distancing and disinfectant procedures. The leadership and planning. This leadership and planning basically happened, has been happening and continues to happen, and these are the requirements that were set into place. There was a restart committee that was formulated to address all of these issues. a school-based pandemic response team to centralize and expedite any COVID-19 decision-making, and strive to share the scheduled plans, which is what we're doing with our Inside Outlook, as well as our website, as well as emails. This is the second actual broadcast where we mainly are talking about our return to school. There'll be 2 more broadcasts, as well as a Board of Education special meeting, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. This all costs money, as you know, and funding. The district has looked to reallocate funds, shift things around, and has been working with the Burlington County Office of Education to utilize reserve funds. You have to have permission to maneuver funds around, and we're working with the county office, as all districts in Burlington County are doing, to reallocate funds to pay for the many expenses that are going to be incurred that we normally would not have. Hand sanitizers, signs, temperature check thermometers, etc. The next area of concern is continuity of learning. Okay. Continuity of learning is the next area that we are concerned with and very important. Our special education students are important as well. So you should be expecting a survey. It was mailed out yesterday. Parents of special education students should fill out that survey, please, and get it back so that we can continue with the delivery of services for those students who need accommodations. Technology, we are making sure that students have devices as well as connectivity to the internet. Curriculum instruction and assessments, that is, we are focusing on making sure that our students are receiving instruction from our teachers, whether they're in school or out of school, that is quality. And we keep check on that, as well as our assessments to make sure that they're in line and that we can measure progress adequately. Professional learning, constant staff training, and how to manipulate these devices. I think we did a fairly good job. Received a lot of compliments about the online learning, and that will continue as well. But of course, we want to address any concerns that they may have. So we are well aware of professional learning continuing for our teachers and staff. The career and technical education, students will receive instruction at school and remotely. So I'd like to summarize and clarify some of the things that we've talked about today. You'll hear some things that I've already said, but I want to summarize and clarify as best I can. Parents, you'll be required to select either fully remote or the hybrid model where students come to school every other day. We will need to do that in the forthcoming few weeks because we have to start to arrange transportation and assigned instructors and space in buildings, etc. So it's a monumental task. So when you receive that, please let us know what your choices are so that we can have some adequate numbers and pretty concrete numbers to get our planning solidified. If you choose fully remote for your student, that's perfectly fine. However, if you choose that you think you might want to send your student to school in the hybrid model, we're going to hold to the first marking period. If you chose the remote learning possibility, or that's what you want to do, we're not going to grant anyone to come back to school in a hybrid model before the first marking period ends because of the fact that there's many adjustments that have to be made for transportation and classrooms and teaching assignments. So we want to get this off to a good start. If you choose the remote learning, that's perfectly fine, but know that that's for the first marking period or longer if you so choose. Students should practice wearing face masks now. You know the research I've read, there's many issues with face masks. For the safety, well-being of our staff, students, other children and visitors, masks will be required. So my advice would be to start practicing with your child wearing a mask because we don't want them on the first day of school to be uncomfortable or not used to it and it becomes an issue. Know that the mask will be required and start practicing with that. Full return to school, we can't do that. We can't bring all of our students back. We do not have the space, as you saw in the classroom, we just don't have the space to bring everyone back. So you know that's why we came up with the hybrid model. Again, the cafeteria will be utilized where possible. Along with the Return to School Committee, the Board of Education will be meeting. They have formulated another committee, which is the Return to School Committee, and we will be informing them along the way, as we have up to this point, about our plans. A special Board of Education meeting has been scheduled for July 29th at 6:30 p.m. to present the reopening plan. Due to social distancing guidelines, attendance will be limited to 80 members of the public, temperature checks will take place, and masks will be worn. This meeting will take place at the Pemberton Township High School. For those unable to attend in person, a conference call number will be available to listen to the meeting. The reopening presentation will be available online July 29th at 5 o'clock. Questions that you may have may be emailed prior to the meeting and addressed at that meeting. The email down below, updates@pem.org, will be the email that you can use to ask questions if you viewed the presentation and you cannot make it to the meeting. Remember, 80 maximum parents, students, interested parties will be allowed in the auditorium. So if you can't make it, know that you can watch the presentation and email questions. Once we get those questions emailed at the meeting, we will then try to answer them, and you can listen in on those answers as we address your concerns. In the meantime, if you have questions today, you may email your questions to the address again, updates@pem.org, and they'll be answered by reply email or during the July 27th board meeting. In conclusion, things are constantly changing. Please be aware that you'll be required to choose between the hybrid model or the entirely remote at-home model. That way we can make adequate planning. Also know that we are very concerned about the health of all of the people in our building, students, staff, parents, and we are focusing on our health and safety through disinfectant, having waiting rooms if there should be someone who exhibits any signs, and also working with the Burlington County Health Department. So these guidelines are subject to modification at any time, so we're working very hard to keep up with that and to deliver that message to you. We're trying to be upfront, trying to be forthright, and as we make plans, we will present them to you. The purpose of this meeting was to basically tell you what obligations we have and the guidelines from the state and the things that we are considering when we move forward with our plan. That's our show for today. Please know that all our planning is done with the utmost consideration for the health and safety of our students, staff, and parents. That will remain our priority as we move forward, and we continue to make adjustments if the situation requires us to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Inside Outlook.